Okay, so we've talked about how you map out or plot out the script and where changes might be, making a list from that chart of how many costumes you might need for the play. Part of analyzing the script is taking those notes, but part of it is also considering character notes, character analysis, and themes and other elements of the play. So Becky's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the notes she took while analyzing Little Shop.
And a lot of the notes I kind of threw away, but I did have these. And this was also done fairly early on. All these are a breakdown of the script. Whenever anything any place in the script, the costumes are referred to as part of the lines of the show, or things that are specific in the script that are requirements. They're going to be requirements. For example, the dentist, they do mention several times in the script as part of the lines, the dentist's leather jacket. And that's actually specifically mentioned in the show, that he has a leather jacket. So there is a note about that. There is a note about Seymour's baseball cap, which as you get into the plot of it is a factor within the plot line of the show. So he has to have a baseball cap. Things like that are built into the script that have to happen, that are not really optional, and that have to be integrated into the design right from the beginning.
Great. Okay, so then you take the notes in your analysis, you take the director's concept, and then the next step is research. Yes. So what did you use for your research bases for Little Shop of Horrors?
I started out by, we had narrowed down, we did not want to go with a very specific year for this show. We left it as a late 50s, early 60s year without getting really specific, and some shows require a very specific date, especially the circumstances of it being Skid Row. People wouldn't have necessarily, the people that lived there wouldn't be dressed state of the art, completely runway fashion. There are people that come in from the outside world that might have been, that are dressed a little bit nicer, but because they weren't supposed to be dressed completely current to begin with, there was a little bit more leeway, and just the nature of the show, it doesn't really require that specific accuracy. There isn't any point in the script that it says exactly what year it is. So, and I liked some aspects from a lot of the years that were in that time frame, that late 50s and early 60s. So we
what aspects did you like?
Well, I liked the Ronettes, the three girls, that girl group look. That
like
whole
the Supremes
look, I like that. And when they crossed over into the 60s, where it was less sort of the poofy skirts and more of the big bouffant hair and this more slimline, I really think that was a really cool look. I really liked that, and I liked the later 50s, went back and forth a little bit between the poofy skirt look that you think of as the 50s, but then also getting into those slimmer styles. So we were able to use both of those, and it worked really well. The character of Audrey is supposed to be a little bit trashier than the other girls. So to be able, she's got the tighter dresses and that snugger look, whereas a lot more of the street people that are coming in and the other characters have got more of the 50s poofy skirts that you think of more as the 50s. I think it's a good combination. It gives the idea of that time period without being overly specific. You get a little bit more creative freedom without pinning it down to the exact year. Okay, so we had that. So I started doing costume history research just from that time period, silhouettes, also researching artwork from that time period, mid-century modern furniture and architecture styles. I had met at that point we were in the beginnings of production meetings, so I'd met with the director and the other designers, and had looked at artwork from that time period, working on color palette that we liked, trying to get a color palette that was going to work for all of us for the show, and working through all of those decisions with various artwork. And I personally had made a Pinterest board. That's what I do with my research is I made a Pinterest board and put all of it on Pinterest. And then the other designers and production staff had a link to my Pinterest board so that they could access. And the hair and wig designer also had put things on my Pinterest board. We were sharing it, so all of the hair and makeup research was also on there. We had a lot of stuff on there. Some stuff was just inspirational. I thought it was cool looking. Some of it was, like I said, artwork, even furniture. There were some illustrations from children's books that had good color palettes that I thought were interesting, just the way that they presented it. A lot of that. I also had links to actual merchandise I had found online from different stores that sold kind of vintage inspired clothes. And, I went ahead and if it was something that I really liked that I thought I might want to pull in later, I had just, saved the link for the actual item so that I could find it later. So all of that, this big mess of stuff, went on the Pinterest board. One thing that was really interesting that happened was, and you'll see this momentarily, I had put a photograph, and it was of a cosplay costume that had this really wild collar on it. That was, I'm thinking it was maybe a poison ivy, maybe something, I don't know. This really cool jacket with this Venus flytrap collar on it. And I put it there as inspiration. I thought it was kind of a funny photo and kind of inspirationally kind of funny. The director was scooting through the Pinterest board just looking at stuff and saw it and fell in love with this collar and was like, you have to do this collar. And I was like, oh, great. I don't even know. I have no idea how to even make this. I put it there as inspiration for some other thing. And he saw it and just loved it and wanted us to make that collar.
And so now it's going to make its way into the show.
Yeah. So now we have it. So you have to be careful what you put on your research board. But I mean, it's really awesome and they look great. But sometimes that's sort of the way things happen too. So.